Welcome to Celestial Insights, a weekly podcast that brings the stars down to earth. I'm your host, astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks. My purpose is to provide practical, unique, and insightful guidance to help you navigate the energies of the week like a boss. Hello, this is Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, and on this episode, I will discuss the astrology for the week of July 19th, 2026. The theme of the week is slouching towards Bethlehem, and there are three big things I want you to think about as you navigate this week. The first is that on July 21st, we have a first quarter moon at 28 degrees of Libra. First quarter moons are times of action. We set intentions at the Cancer new moon, but now something has to happen. Decisions are being made, events move forward, and pressure builds to take action. Libra is a sign of diplomacy, justice, relationships, treaties, and balance. It's represented by the scales. And the sun is in Cancer, the sign of homeland, family, security, ancestry, and land. One of the stories to watch for is action around negotiations involving territory, borders, housing, or national security. Now, this first quarter moon is almost to the end of the sign. Whenever planets are moving at the end of signs, there is a sense of something's reached a critical stage. There's a sense of urgency and a need to resolve something before the energy shifts. Venus rules Libra, and currently the planet is in Virgo, the sign of its fall. Venus in Virgo can become hyper-focused on imperfections, details, and criticism. This is symbolic of the difficulties in negotiations and maintaining peace and diplomacy, because the planet that rules these themes is in the sign of its fall, where it cannot act with ease. At the same time, Venus in Virgo is applying to a square with Mars in Gemini. Both signs are answering in to Mercury retrograde, amplifying the potential for conflicts. Venus can be nitpicky and Mars can try to bombard you with all these different facts, but Virgo is discerning and is not going to fall for a snow job. This can make compromise more difficult. Conversations get sharper and negotiations stall over small details. Compromise can be harder to come to, but it's not, of course, impossible. It's just harder. There's tension. That's what the square signifies. The moon is also traveling through what we call the Via Combusta, or the path of fire. Technically, this spans from 15 degrees of Libra to 3 degrees of Scorpio, although over time, some astrologers have extended it to 15 degrees of Scorpio. It is a region in the zodiac filled with several challenging fixed stars associated with instability and situations that can be difficult to judge clearly. In horary astrology, when the moon is in the Via Combusta, it suggests the circumstances are turbulent or that events are unfolding under pressure. Adding to this intensity, the moon is applying to square Jupiter in Leo after it enters Scorpio in a few hours. And Jupiter magnifies whatever it touches. So whatever story is unfolding around this first quarter moon is likely to grow larger because the moon is waxing and attracting attention and become more dramatic over the following days. Also, we always can think about the body with the zodiac signs. Libra rules the kidneys and Cancer is associated with fluids. We may hear more stories involving kidney health, fluid retention, flooding, or water-related events. something that's symbolic of imbalance involving excess water, both literally or metaphorically. Regarding the moon phase family, the new moon of this cycle was October 21st, 2025, where the sun and the moon both met at 28 Libra. And this was right around the time that the president met with Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and reportedly pressed him for territorial concessions in exchange for peace with Russia. Now we come to the first quarter moon 9 months later, and Ukraine is hitting a lot of fuel depots in Russia. People there, the citizens, are facing a very different lifestyle as they wait hours and hours in lines for gas. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a turning point regarding the peace negotiations at this first quarter moon, where the sun and the moon are both at 28 degrees of their respective signs, sun in Cancer, moon in Libra. The full moon of this cycle, 9 months from now, will be the sun will have advanced into the sign of Taurus and the moon advanced into Scorpio, both at 0 degrees on April 20th, 2027. And the last quarter moon of the cycle, sun in Capricorn, moon in Libra, both at 28 degrees on January 18th, 2028. So you can take a look at the dates. Now, events can happen a couple weeks before or after, but a story may thread through your life that has turning points. One of my greatest joys is helping people understand themselves more fully. If you're wanting to make sense of your past, recognize the patterns that have shaped you, or get clearer about the path ahead, astrology can offer real insight. In our sessions, we'll use your natal chart as a map. You don't need to know any astrology at all. You can book a single session for clarity or choose a coaching package if you'd like ongoing support as you grow and plan for the future. Book your sessions at astrologybyceleste.com on the services page. The next thing I want to make you aware of is that Leo season begins on July 22nd through August 22nd. The sun will move through its home sign. The sun is dignified in Leo, meaning it can express its core qualities with ease, which are confidence, vitality, creativity, generosity, leadership, and the desire to shine. At its highest expression, Leo inspires courage, more authentic self-expression, and heart-centered leadership. Lower vibes can be arrogant, prideful, attention-seeking, and obsessed with status or recognition. This Leo season is especially significant because the moment the sun enters Leo, it starts activating the Barbeau basket. It's still fully in place with Jupiter in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius. Jupiter opposite Pluto has long been called the gambler's curse in financial astrology. Jupiter encourages confidence, expansion, and the belief that more is always possible, where Pluto amplifies intensity, power, and obsession. So together they can create overconfidence, high stakes risk-taking, and the temptation to believe you're invincible. I talked about the Barbeau basket last week, so you can go listen to the podcast called Basket Case if you didn't listen. And Jupiter in Leo magnifies the Leo symbolism of leaders, celebrity, royalty, athletes, and people in positions of prominence, while Pluto in Aquarius represents the collective. And one possible manifestation is a leader is facing growing pressure from the people, whether in government, business, entertainment, or another prominent institution. Notice we may see larger than life personalities elevated or brought down as the balance between individual power and sovereignty, which is Leo, is versus collective power, which is Aquarius, play out. Leo also rules the heart, the upper back, gold, children, creativity, royalty. And it's as Leo season begins, the moon is in Scorpio, a sign associated with resources, debt, taxes, death, transformation, and emotional intensity. It's the sign of the moon's fall. It's uncomfortable here. So there's going to be a lot of emotional intensity during the whole cycle of the sun moving through Leo. You can look at the ingress chart when the sun enters Leo, and it gives insights into the whole transit. The Scorpio moon is at the apex of a yod, and Mars in Gemini on one side and Saturn and Aries on the other side. Now, Mars and Saturn are in a sextile, which is cooperative and an opportunity transit, but these are the malefics that take away from life. Mars severs and separates. Saturn rejects and excludes. And a yod describes circumstances requiring adjustment. People may be feeling pulled into multiple directions. This makes me think about the people going to their city council, demanding accountability for their leaders who want to put these data centers that are destroying the water, the environment, people's sanity with the noise they're making in their communities. New York State put a law into place at the new moon that no data centers can be built in the state. Leo is a fire sign, and we're already seeing its symbolism emerge literally around the world. Record-breaking heat, destructive wildfires, and extreme weather is dominating headlines everywhere. Fire is both creative and destructive. It gives light, warmth, and life, but when unchecked, it consumes everything in its path. On August 12th, there will be a solar eclipse in Leo. So we are in eclipse season, a turning point, and it affects the massives with the Barbo basket active in the sky, this connection between the outer planets and Jupiter, which is a social planet. It's a great time to come get an astrology reading if you want to talk about what your next, especially 6 months, will look like. Eclipses open a 6-month cycle. The last thing I want to make you aware of is that Mercury stations direct at 16 degrees of Cancer on July 23rd. Mercury has been retrograde since June 29th, so over these past several weeks, we've had an opportunity to reflect and revisit Cancer themes of home, family, ancestry, homeland security, and belonging. As Mercury turns direct, the stories that have been developing begin moving into their next chapter. Collectively, this retrograde has been remarkably symbolic. One of the biggest stories came on June 29th when the Supreme Court ruled that states may continue counting valid mail ballots that arrive after Election Day if state law permits it. The decision rejected a challenge backed by the Trump administration and kept existing laws in place in several states. We've seen wars reignite and conflicts escalate after brief pauses during this Mercury retrograde. We saw repeated reversals, another retrograde topic, at the World Cup, from a controversial officiating decision that took away a goal from a country to political intervention where the president got involved surrounding a player who'd gotten a red card from the American team. Questions of nationality and identity also dominated the news, Cancer themes, including an international controversy after a Paraguayan senator directed racist remarks towards a French player of Cameroonian descent. Mercury rules travel and commerce and airlines suspended or rerouted flights, and maritime trade face repeated disruptions as regional conflicts force governments and carriers to continually revising their plans in the Middle East. Even the passing of Senator Lindsey Graham carried Cancer symbolism, as his sister succeeded him in the Senate, bringing the theme of family, lineage, and inheritance into public view. And the same day he died, we saw a picture from Mitch McConnell's office showing him sitting with his wife that many people think has been fabricated. And there's been conversation after conversation about this evidence that was presented of his proof of life. As Mercury stations direct, the president's chart is strongly activated. Mars in Gemini is conjunct his natal Uranus at 17 degrees of that sign, fusing and bringing together two highly volatile planets. Mars with Uranus often correlates with sudden, unexpected actions, surprising announcements, sharp rhetoric, unexpected decisions, travel disruptions. Whether that shows up as an inflammatory statement or a significant policy announcement or another headline-grabbing event remains to be seen. There could also be vitality news because Mars in his natal chart is conjunct his ascendant, which rules our vitality, our physical body, as well as how we appear to the world or the mask we wear. So events can fold quickly, unpredictably, be shocking. Now that the World Cup is over, aggressive actions on new fronts could be happening. I think we need to, ground ourselves, understand what we can control, what we can't control. Think about the serenity prayer. Adding to this significance, Mercury turns direct just as Saturn is preparing to go retrograde, pulling back the tape so that we can see what's underneath the authorities' aggressive actions. Expect announcements of weighty decisions with lasting consequences. And these may be things coming to you in your conscious mind, experiences you're hearing from people in your circle, at work, as well as the world stage. The president had significant legal setbacks, including birthright citizenship. He had to pay Egan Carroll her money. I expect him to be booed mercilessly at the World Cup final. So all of these things are building within him psychologically, and he's a Gemini, so Mercury rules his whole chart, and his Mercury is in Cancer. So he may be even more than normally emotionally reactive. And as Mercury stations direct, notice what has become clearer, what decisions you're finally ready to make, and how your intuition has deepened over the past several weeks. The title of this week's podcast, Slouching Towards Bethlehem, comes from W.B. Waite's famous poem, The Second Coming. And thank you to the person on Instagram who mentioned this to me. He wrote, "Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born." Joan Didion later borrowed the same title for her celebrated 1968 collection of essays, Slouching Towards Bethlehem, chronicling the cultural upheaval unfolding across California during the 1960s. She wrote about a society in transition where old structures were breaking down and people were searching for meaning in the midst of uncertainty. And it's especially interesting to revisit her work now because Los Angeles has Pluto at 4 Aquarius, and the city has been in the midst of its Pluto return, a once in 248-year cycle that symbolizes profound transformation. Think about the fires in LA, as well as the ICE raids that happened at the beginning of this administration. And so these themes in this poem and her book are especially relevant to the astrology we're living through. We are in a period of enormous collective change where old systems are straining at the seams, institutions are being tested or dismantled, and people feel as though the center is no longer holding. The collective emotional temperature is in a state of hysteria. I can feel it and see it with what I'm reading that people are saying. These periods of unraveling are unsettling, but they're also part of history's great turning points. When the outer world feels unstable, it becomes even more important to find your own center rather than looking for stability outside yourself. So whatever you can do during this week to calm yourself down, use your tools, disconnect if needed. One of the charts I'm closely watching is Israel's. Israel's natal moon is at 4 Libra. So Jupiter is on their moon. The moon rules the people in general. And in Placidus, their moon is in the 10th house, and they have a Cancer midheaven. So the moon governs the nation's leadership and executive branch. And Pluto is moving through their 4th house of homeland, territory, and the foundations of the country. The Barbo basket is activating Israel's chart. Jupiter expands whatever it touched. Pluto exposes buried realities and brings profound transformation. So together, this opposition suggests significant events involving leadership, national identity, or the homeland could emerge. We know there's this Greater Israel project, and they are pushing into the West Bank, and that's where Bethlehem is located. So the title Slouching Towards Bethlehem carries a striking symbolic resonance with that. So we could see major developments involving the West Bank, settlers, Palestinians in general, or broader questions surrounding territory and sovereignty. And a story that's already come to light, which brings in this theme, is Congressman Ro Khanna went to the West Bank and was stopped and held by Israeli settlers during his visit. This is a diplomatic scandal that is making big news. But I expect other stories as that Jupiter opposite Pluto aspect perfects July 20th. And Pluto often works like a volcano. Pressure builds beneath the surface until it can no longer be contained, and then everything changes at once. Jupiter amplifies the scale and visibility for whatever is going to happen. And remember, although the first eclipse doesn't happen until August 12th, it's a solar eclipse in Leo. Events are already folding 4 to 6 weeks in advance. This podcast is supported by tools and practices I use myself. One of those is Solar Fire software. Whether you're an astrology hobbyist just exploring charts, an enthusiastic student, or you have a full professional practice, Solar Fire is such a powerful companion. It doesn't just store charts, it animates them. You can move forward or backward in time and watch transits, progressions, and timing techniques unfold in real motion. I customize chart layouts, keep my client notes organized, and run reports I use all the time. It's deep enough for advanced work, but still approachable when you're learning. You can use my code Celeste15 for 15% off at alabe.com. On Sunday, the word of the day is capitulate. The Libra Moon opposes Neptune retrograde in Aries, both at 4 degrees. So there's energy around diplomacy, relationships, and Neptune brings unknown themes to the surface. On this day, Mars in Gemini is sextile Saturn and Aries at 14 degrees. Sextiles are opportunities. Mars wants to move fast, but Saturn gives Mars the energy to act decisively with purpose and kind of slows it down. These two energies can work together. So plans can move forward and decisions implemented. So this could be really good to moving plans forward and taking calculated risks. But Saturn's in the sign of its fall, so patience may be limited. And with the Libra Moon, we may see leaders or institutions that are supposed to be collaborating or dealing with diplomacy, deciding enough of this talk, it's time to move, and one side may give up after resistance. On Monday, the word of the day is hubris. The Libra Moon opposes Saturn and Aries at 14 degrees and also squares Mercury retrograde in Cancer at 16 degrees. So this makes a T-square with the Moon opposite Saturn and both squaring Mercury retrograde. There could be some revelations about actions by leaders, or we really see something come through. Jupiter in Leo is opposite Pluto retrograde in Aquarius on this day, both at 4 degrees. This transit is called the gambler's curse, where overreach can meet reality. And with Saturn involved, there can be a big reality check. There's a story about hubris, overreach, overconfidence. Think about Icarus symbology. Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, his wings melted and he fell into the sea. So notice what you're hearing, stories around that. And something giving way after resistance. On Tuesday, the word of the day is autopsy. The first quarter moon at 28 Libra begins at 4:05 a.m. Pacific time. It's the crisis of action, and this one activates the U.S. Pluto in Capricorn. There can be big financial stories. The U.S. Pluto is in the second house of resources. Something is definitely coming to light. On this day, Jupiter in Leo sextiles Uranus in Gemini at 4 degrees. So again, this theme of something shocking and upheaval related to Jupiter themes, Leo themes. There could be something about a judge. Jupiter rules judges. The Scorpio moon begins at 6:34 a.m. Pacific time. So the moon moves to that 29th degree of Libra, where there's a crisis and decay around relationships or diplomacy or justice, and then it drops into the sign of its fall of Scorpio at 6:34 a.m. Pacific time. Deep waters. There could be information about drowning. And the first thing the moon does is oppose Chiron in Taurus at 0 degrees. The Scorpio moon is at the tip of the yod. This is the finger of God chart pattern. And Uranus in Gemini is at the base on one side and Neptune in Aries on the other side, all at 4 degrees, degree of foundations. And this is another reason I think we're going to get some kind of information, Gemini, that can disrupt a narrative or story that's been told and shed light on deception. The moon then squares Pluto retrograde at 4 Aquarius and then Jupiter at 4 Leo. This is so many aspects on one day. There is a lot of changing energy, a lot of decisions being made, a good time to take a deep breath before taking action. On Wednesday, the word of the day is gilded. The sun enters Leo at 12:12 p.m. Pacific time. Leo is the sign of the golden child, play, recreation, the performer, and the Leo sun is quincunx, the north node at 0 degrees of Pisces. So there's something in the blind spot. Quincunxes are the 150-degree aspect that, may bring something into your conscious attention. You may decide to donate to some kind of charity. Pisces brings themes of charity. Leo on the high road is very generous. Now, Venus in Virgo on this day is also quincunx Saturn and Aries at 14 degrees of both planets. They're both in the sign of their fall, a relationship in the sign of its fall, and Saturn and Aries suffering some kind of hardship. We may hear a story about Hollywood. LA's midheaven is at 1 Leo. I wrote down land of broken dreams. There's something about an illusion where we get to see behind the surface. I also wrote down gilding the lily, adding a necessary ornamentation to something that's already beautiful. You can think about that. The Gilded Age, the talented Mr. Ripley comes to mind, as well as The Great Gatsby, a high-flying couple. Could be Harry and Meghan. On Thursday, the word of the day is insecure. The Leo sun squares Chiron and Taurus, both at 0 degrees. I wrote pride goes before the fall. So this can be some kind of celebrity, and we discover they have financial issues. Chiron and Taurus brings up around a wound around self-worth, security, money, values, or resources into sharp focus. I wrote down bankruptcy. A star is broke. Mercury stations direct on this day at 16 degrees of Cancer at 3:57 p.m. So, yay, Mercury is direct on this day, and things that were stalled can start moving forward. The moon enters Sagittarius at 6:06 p.m. Pacific time. Sagittarius energy is fiery and expansive. There can be optimism and fun. And the first thing the moon does is it squares the node. So there's energy of a choice point. Which way do you go? Do you go left or right? You should go towards the north node in Pisces. Compassion, expansion, seeing us all as one. This could be a day where you could have to walk by faith, not by sight. On Friday, the word of the day is euphoria. The Sagittarius moon opposes Uranus at 4 degrees of Gemini. On this day, we also have Mercury in Cancer, sextiling Venus in Virgo at 16 degrees. Mercury is barely moving forward, and Venus comes to Mercury. So Venus may be offering you something. And with sextiles and water and earth signs, there could be making the magic within. You could get an unbelievable mental breakthrough or idea that sends you into a euphoric state. Neptune retrograde in Aries is sextile Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 4 degrees. This feels like there's the energy of a jubilee with the Sag moon opposite Uranus and Gemini. Excitement is in the air. There's spontaneous celebration, surprise announcements, a collective desire to gather, travel, and experience something bigger than ourselves. But we just need to be aware. If you're in crowds, really pay attention, because the excitement with all the outer planets involved can turn on a dime into something where someone shouts fire and people start running and someone falls and gets hurt. On Saturday, the word of the day is budget. The Sagittarius Moon squares Venus in Virgo at 17 degrees of each sign. And then the gibbous moon, which is pregnant with possibilities, begins at 17 Sagittarius. So if you have anything at 17, there may be a story in your life. Sagittarius wants freedom, adventure, celebration, travel, and the big picture to stay in focus. Venus in Virgo wants to focus in on the details, be practical, take a look at the budget, see what's imperfect. I wrote down who's going to clean up this mess, but think about how you can balance joy with discernment and watch out for any big unexpected financial decisions that you will later regret. So take good care of yourself, really ground yourself. Things could get extremely crazy this week. That's it for this week's episode. Feel free to email me at celeste@astrologybyceleste.com with any astrology and action stories, or let me know how the daily themes are playing out for you. Take care, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to Celestial Insights. To learn more about my work, please visit my website, astrologybyceleste.com, where I offer personal readings, horary consultations, cosmic coaching, group events, and classes to help guide people to higher levels of fulfillment. You can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook at Astrology by Celeste. If you enjoyed Celestial Insights, please help others find the show. Follow, rate it 5 stars, or write a nice review. I would so appreciate it. I'm astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks, and I'll be back next week.